Sinead O Connor, Narcissist or Empath, Part 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You'll be aware that the singer, writer, performer, Sinead O Connor, died last week. A complex character, and therefore one that bears examination. We're going to look at a range of evidence from a range of sources to determine what she is. Was she a narcissist? Outspoken? Didn't care so long as she was able to assert control over people, courting controversy because she fed off the fuel of publicity and attention? Or was she a deeply troubled woman, but nevertheless entirely empathic, caring for her children, those around her? Perhaps she was neither, that she was normal, or perhaps she was narcissistic. We're going to examine a considerable amount of evidence, much of it coming from her own mouth, to make a determination as to what she was. By way of short summary, she was known professionally as Sinead O Connor, but had changed her name to Shahada Sadakat. She was an Irish singer, songwriter, and political activist. Her debut studio album, The Lion and the Cobra, was released in 1987 and charted internationally. Her second studio album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, in 1990, became her biggest success, selling over 7 million copies worldwide. Its lead single, Nothing Compares to You, was named the number one world single in 1990 by the Billboard Music Awards, and perhaps is the song that she's best known for, and particularly as a consequence of the close-up of her face during the video where a solitary tear trickles down her face. She released a number of studio albums. Her work included songs for films, collaborations with many other artists, and appearances at charity fundraising concerts. Her 2021 memoir, Rememberings, was a bestseller. In 1999, O'Connor was ordained as a priest by the Irish Orthodox Catholic and Apostolic Church, an independent Catholic sect that is not recognized by the Roman Catholic Church. She consistently spoke out on issues related to child abuse, human rights, racism, organized religion, and women's rights. Throughout her music career, she spoke about her spiritual journey, activism, socio-political views, as well as her trauma and mental health struggles. In 2017, O'Connor changed her name to Magda David. After converting to Islam in 2018, she changed it to Shahada Sadakat, but continued to record and perform under her birth name. On the 26th of July 2023, O'Connor was found unresponsive at her flat in Herne Hill, South London, and later confirmed dead at the age of 56. Her family issued a statement later the same day without indicating the cause of her death. The following day, the Metropolitan Police reported that O'Connor's death was not being treated as suspicious. On the 28th of July, the coroner in London said that the date of her death was still unknown. Those are some of the background details. We're now going to go back to learn more about her family and her upbringing, which provides us with considerable insight into what has shaped her. Sinead O'Connor was born on December the 8th, 1966, in the Caskia House nursing home at 13 Pembroke Road, Dublin. She was born into a well-to-do family. Her parents were John Oliver Sean O'Connor and Johanna Marie O'Grady. John and Marie married in the Church of Our Lady of Good Counsel in Dublin in 1960. Her father worked as a structural engineer and later turned barrister and chairperson of the Divorce Action Group. As for her mum, she was a stay-at-home mother who took care of their children. The singer's parents named her after two important figures they had met. First, her name Sinead was after Sinead de Valra, the mother of the doctor presiding over the delivery, and her maiden name Bernadette was in honour of Saint Bernadette of Lourdes. Bernadette of Lourdes was a French nun who lived in the 1800s. As a young teenager, she had a series of visions of the Virgin Mary in the Massabielle grotto, ultimately leading to the founding of the Shrine of Lourdes. It's also useful to understand the description of her family in her own words. She explained that in relation to that her mother and father married in 1960. 3 years later, my brother Joe was born, and they then moved to middle-class Glenegery, far away on the other side of town. Then in 1965 came my sister, Ema, then me 14 months later in 1966, then in 1968, my brother John. In 1975, my father sensibly left my mother for reasons that will become apparent. He was given custody of us, and we went to live with him and his new love, my lovely stepmother, Viola. But me and my little brother stayed only maybe 6 months because we missed our mother. At that point, I was 9. I stayed with my mother until I was 13, and then I went, by choice, back to live with my father. I was unable to adjust after what had been going on in my mother's house, so towards the end of my 13th year, I went to what is politely called a rehabilitation centre for girls with behavioural problems. I think the whole world knows a refund is owed to my father for that, as it clearly didn't work. At 15, I left the centre and I went to a boarding school in Waterford. I joined a band that summer, and then I went back to school. I missed the band, so in December, after I turned 16, I ran away from the school and got myself a studio apartment, a bedsit, much to the horror of my poor father. He eventually agreed to let me stay once I'd agreed to remove the nose piercing I'd also gotten. He paid my rent, but none of my bills, so I had to get jobs. He's a genius. My father's second wife, Viola, has 3 daughters from a different marriage, so I have 3 stepsisters. Viola and my father also have 1 son, Owen, so he's my brother also. In 1985, my mother died in a car crash. I was 18. Later that year, after being invited by Ensign Records to sign a contract with them, I left for London. My first child was born when I was 20, 3 weeks before my first album was released. I have 3 other children, and so far, 2 grandchildren. There is an interesting description of the way that she saw her family. We now take an excerpt from her memoir that is titled August 1977. Elvis is dead. I'm crying so fucking much I can't make my bed. My body won't work. I keep trying to throw the sheet across the bed, but I can't. My arms won't work. I try crawling across the bed with a corner in each hand, but I can't. My legs won't work. I'm in trouble with my mother because I haven't got the bed made. I'm too embarrassed to explain why I'm dripping snot and tears all over the clean sheets, or why I keep falling on my knees and standing up again. I think she likes Elvis too. Figure she secretly knows why I'm in a mess. She doesn't get very cross about the bed. She doesn't get cross at all, actually, which is most unusual. I need a new father now that Elvis is gone. My father isn't dead. I just ain't seen him for a very long time because my mother doesn't like him. In fact, they pretty much can't stand each other. It's scary when they're together. It's not much scary on our own with our own dad. But she's different. I don't go looking for any father because I have God, and God sends me stuff because I talk to him. Naturally, he's the number one father, but I'm a kid. I need a father's voice, and poor God don't have a voice. I like voices for some reason. I don't know why. Sometimes people's voices make me want to cuddle them, but I'm really scared of cuddling. My body won't work if someone tries to cuddle me. I like my Aunt Lily, and it hurts her feelings I won't cuddle her. I really want to, but I freeze, and in my head, I see a mountain of wolves all covered in blood, so much that they can't move, and only one wolf is running about, the one who was at the very bottom of the pile, when whatever happened, happened, and it has no blood on it. It's looking for help. I ain't seen my granny, my mum's mother, for a while either. She has a gentle, nice voice. She likes me. She says I'm honest and never to say sorry if I don't mean it. She lets me have everything I'm not supposed to have to eat. She can make me fall asleep by just gazing in my eyes when I'm tucked up in her bed. I like her clocks tick-tocking. Makes me hear music. Ain't seen her since I was maybe 6. A recollection there from her memoir, which is already starting to hint at considerable familial discord. It suggests a turbulent relationship between her father and mother, the fact that often her mother is cross at her, more of that in due course, and also that she hasn't seen her father nor one of her grandparents for some time. Another excerpt from her memoir gives us further insight into her childhood. Sister Clotilde brings me to the chapel regularly to pray that the urge to steal will leave me. So far it hasn't worked. But that's because my mother likes me to steal. So we have an admission that she steals, which shows a sense of entitlement, an absence of accountability, an absence of emotional empathy for those affected by the stealing. But note, she also explains that her mother wants her to steal, which suggests a lack of parental guidance in that respect. She continues by explaining, Mrs. Shields, who was a teacher, used to ask me if my mother made me do it, but I said no. She'd ask me where the welts on my legs came from, or about the massively swollen black eye I once had. She'd say, it's your mother, isn't it? But I'd deny it. If my mother found out I'd told, she'd murder me. I felt bad lying to Mrs. Shields because she's lovely. I don't know why she likes me, but she does. I'd like to be her girl. I'd like to be going home with her every afternoon. She looks like she was about to cry whenever I said it wasn't my mother. Her face would go all red, and she'd reach deep into her handbag and give me money for sweets and pat my face all gentle, like my granny does. Evidently there that she's suffering physical abuse at the hands of her mother, but still won't admit as such to one of the teachers that is exhibiting some care and concern for her. Another example that comes from her memoir relates to an instance where there was a button missing off her dress. She explains, there was a button missing off my dress, which used to be my sister's dress, and we were supposed to go away for the weekend, up to my mother's friend's house. I got beaten up naked again, and my mother took the light bulb from my room and locked me in and went away with the others. When I'm frightened, I find bits of paper and write, because I'm not allowed to say I'm angry at my mother. So I write, and then tear the pages into tiny little pieces and eat them so she won't find them. This was on a Friday. When it got dark, I felt about my room until I found some paper and a pencil. I wrote to God. I said, "Please help me." I was kneeling on the floor facing my bed. Then out of the corner of my eye I saw a small, white, very misty cloud come sit to my left a little behind me, and it stayed there all night. But the spirit didn't come back on any of the other days. I didn't eat anything all weekend, and I peed on the floor. When my mother got back, she was cross and hit me for that. I had to go to hospital later that day because I had a horrible pain in my stomach. The nice young doctor said, "This child hasn't eaten." My mother said I'd eaten goulash, but I hadn't. She locked me in and went away another time before this, but in the night my daddy came and broke the door down and took me to the doctor. I don't know how he knew I was there. He was upset when he saw all the dry blood on my face. We didn't say much in the car. She locked me, under the stairs a lot too. Instances of abuse as a child, as a consequence of the treatment from her mother. We'll be learning more of the way that her mother treated her, which gives us particular insight both into what her mother was, but also the environment that Sinead O Connor found herself in part 2. Join me there.